Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, presented by Zwift, the online platform to make your indoor cycling training fun. We have the Catalunya Brugge-De Panne, much vaunted double header. Actually, Brugge-De Panne was good today.
Yeah.
With Demuren and crosswinds and terrible weather. Probably one worth watching if you missed it watching the Catalunya stage. Benji obviously was glued to it because I believe it does laps around his house. I say that joke a lot, but I think in this instance it's actually the truth, right?
It literally misses my city and does everything around my city. So it laps around my city, basically. It's
very liberal use of the word city there, I think.
It's an official city, but everybody keeps saying that Histel is not a city, but it's officially a city.
Okay. Anyway, we're going to do Catalunya first, where they're not in cities. Well, they leave Barcelona, which is a city, like north of Barcelona and Alost. Well, not really that close. And then they're going to do a pretty hard stage. The most difficult stage start to finish. Not the most difficult finish, though. 180 Ks from Alost to La Molina. It has, let's say, 5 climbs, of which 3 of them are over 20 minutes, 25 minutes. They have the Col de la Creta, which is 18.7 Ks, 5% in steps. And then La Molina, which is mainly 8.4 Ks, 6.5% descent. Most Soler attacked last year. We'll see if he does it again. And then a little punch to the finish of maybe 5% at 1K. A little punchy finish. Weird stage. O'Connor won it last year. And Roglic was in the leader's jersey by just 6 seconds ahead of Evenepoel. Decent break though, Benji. Actually, like when I saw the break, I was like, these are some decent climbers who you can't give 5-7 minutes to.
Especially Richard Carapaz, who is on 3 minutes 30 in GC, had a bad day on yesterday's climb, but let's be honest about it, he's still that kind of guy that goes in Volta breakaways if he's not in GC and destroys people in breakaways. But destroying was not necessarily what he was going to do today in that breakaway. Spoilers for you there. He went in the breakaway with another rider from the area, Cepeda, not the Cepeda that is currently on. I don't even know where that Cepeda has gone. EF. Okay.
Carapaz.
Next to Carapaz. But the other Cepeda, Jefferson Alvaro, no clue if it's related, is on Caja Rural, and he's probably a better rider in my personal opinion at the moment.
Yeah, he's good in Andalusia.
Maxime van Gils in that breakaway as well. We had Guillaume Martin, that breakaway dropped relatively early and then came back again towards the final. So intriguing to see like the strengths in this breakaway. But let's be honest about it. The peloton kept it relatively close, even though it went to 4.5 minutes at the start, with Jumbo-Visma putting a rider at the front just to control. It looked like Quick-Step was going to push hard on the latter part of the race. And you said it, this is a harder race than, for example, yesterday's stage, because yesterday is kind of a Evenepoel stage. What that is Evenepoel, I think that means one climb, because it's like flat and a climb at the end. Hockey stick parkour, as we decided to mention it a few years ago on this podcast. And today is climbs throughout, so you know that you can make the race harder. You can put more kilojoules in the legs of the competitors if you pace on earlier climbs. And the Col de la Creta, or whatever it's called, the second last climb of the day, that's a bit of a nifty one, eh? Because like it says like 5% average, but there's actual steep parts in it, no?
There's like, I don't know. By the way, sorry, professional podcaster. I know the riders get sick after Paris and Tirreno, but I've also got a little bit of a throat or something coming on. But I battle through. No days off. No DNFs here. But yeah, there's some Ks at 8%. 8% is a decent gradient, and it's really, there's like a little descent that it's not a fully fake news climb, but you can make parts of it difficult. And it also goes to 1,900 meters. It's reasonably high. It gets cool up there too at this time of year, and you got long, cool descents into La Molina too. So it's the hardest stage of the race, even though Le Port will clearly be the hardest finish. I was, though, surprised that Quick-Step took it up today, and Remco didn't hide that. He said in the interview before the race, yeah, we're going to have a go today. We're going to see what the Giro mountain train can do, which I was like, why not yesterday? Like where the finish is way harder and you can create proper gaps. I was thinking this is a very suitable finish for Roglic. So I don't know. I was surprised that I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong today. I'm saying of the 3 mountain stages in this race, this stage wouldn't have been the one I would have circled to go hard on.
I agree. I'd say that Laporte, the one that is coming as the hardest one, I'd say that the Evenepoel stage that we had yesterday is a finish that is also harder than on paper, this Crueta and this last climb. But I think, playing advocate of the devil for a second, that maybe the factor that there's more climbing before the final climb felt like they could do more on those climbs, because maybe other teams would have taken it up if it was a Evenepoel climb, and maybe those riders wouldn't have been there then. Because like yesterday, they weren't there, eh? Van Wilder was the only rider there. I think Hirt dropped with like 25 riders left. Today, they were much stronger than yesterday. So maybe they just weren't good enough yesterday?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe the steadier, harder pace suited them compared to like the hockey stick. I don't know. I must confess, I don't know Jan Hirt's exact power curve and how it responds to fatigue. Maybe that's a bit remiss of me, but yeah, they're obviously confident. And you got to say, like, Remco, it's not like he has no chance in a punchy finish against Roglic. Like, yesterday he pulled for 2Ks, he attacked in the last 2Ks again, he did a lead out / started a sprint from 500 meters to go, and then they just barely beat him. And stage 1, he came from deep, although Roglic was impressive too. Like, it's not like the disparity between Pogacar and Vingegaard in sprints.
Yeah, that's for certain. Now, they did pace on the Crueta, like you mentioned. They made the race a bit harder here. Said he was the first one. Cataneo also doing work on that climb. I'm not 100% sure if I saw Masnada. It could be that he paced as well, but I didn't count every single quick-step rider on the climb. And the group started reducing quite a bit. I feel like there were like 25 to 30 riders left with like 4.5, 5K to go, which is the steeper portion of the Crueta climb towards the end, just before it flattens out to 2 kilometers of flatness towards the top. And I was like, Van Wilder's still here? Hirt is still here? Other hypothetical for a second. What happens in this race? If Hirt goes hard, Van Wilder goes hard, and then Evenepoel attacks a group of 15 here. Because Jumbo only had Kuss next to Roglic, and Kruijswijk was at the back of the peloton. Didn't look amazing.
There's no way Remco wants to push full on a descent, though.
Yeah.
Even if it's not that technical in Catalonia in the lead up to the Giro, I never see it.
But as viewers,
happening.
We would want it, eh?
Of course, I'd love to see it. No risk, no glory. He absolutely should have done that. Despicable that he didn't. But yeah, I can understand him not doing it and also keeping the team together. And Kuss is a good descender too. Like frankly, Kuss going to bring a 10-second gap, I think, on home roads, and he's a better descender than Remco.
I don't think so, because of the 2 kilometers of flat at the top.
True, yeah. Remco's really, really fast there. But yeah, it's just
close.
Not something they're going to do in Catalonia. Maybe in the Giro. Maybe we'll go for it then. But before then, make sure you check out the all-new Zwift Hub, the easiest way to start Zwifting, a class leader in its price bracket, according to Bike Radar, but according to me, a price leader across all trainers, representing better value for money than any other turbo trainer on the market. Direct drive, full immersion feel, no sweat setup. Unlock your fitness on Zwift. You can be racing virtually every day, like Benji, kicking PR goals every day. I won't do any spoilers more than that on there. Or you can just use Zwift's training workouts. They even have a collection of workouts under 1 hour in length. If you're pressed for time, like somehow I have been the last couple of days, it's very useful for me to stay on top of my fitness goals. So thanks, as always, to Zwift, our presenting show partner.
And especially if you live in Brugge-De Panne area right now, because the weather in that race was not looking good today, and I wouldn't have ridden in it, so I'd rather ride inside on Zwift then.
Also, before we get back to Catalonia, and this is not directly related to Zwift, but it sort of is, because, so the horses, right, they have so much manure, and they use it as fertilizer here, and so they're about to plant the tobacco plants behind my house and summer, and they grow in summer, and then they cut them just after the Vuelta usually. And because I walked out of the house, I was like, do I smell like horse shit? Like, has it gotten to that stage with my wife not over here yet that I just smell like horse shit? And then I realized, no, my whole suburb smells like horse shit. And then I realized But if I'm in my suburb with that around me, maybe it will make me start smelling like horseshit. I think I don't want to say anything about Demur and Benji, but that's how riders get sick, right? Like there's all the rubbish on the road flicking up. It can't be great ingesting that.
Even Stan de Wolf, what race was it? The now where he straight up rode into manure by the side of the road?
He literally felt. Well, we don't know if it was horse or cow anyway, but these are the things you've got to be aware of when you're covering Northern Classics in March. These are important things to be monitoring the agricultural practices, for better or worse. And yes,
Zwift.
But in all seriousness, that is why a lot of riders get sick around this time: the cold, the rain, and the rubbish flicking up across the road. Anyway, back to Catalonia, where there was not rain. Quickstep launching at Benji. They brought the break back pretty handily. I think Guillaume was the philosopher the last from the break to be brought back.
Actually, I think Carapaz was there together with Maxim van Gils as the last two.
Van Gils was good.
For some reason, Carapaz looked weak at the first kilometer of La Molina because he was like dropping from the philosopher and Maxim van Gils' wheel, and then he's just walked back to them. Well, not walked, but on the bike, he's crawled back to them. And then they dropped Martin, and we had those two riders being the last two to be caught. Van Gils was even the last one when he attacked Carapaz. But anyway, break story behind us, irrelevant at this point. The peloton was going to fight it out for the stage, and Quickstep was pushing. Hirt was pushing a bit. Hirt's in front of Van Wilder, and after Algarve, that doesn't necessarily surprise me because Van Wilder was pretty strong in Algarve, is one of the strongest GC riders there. It looks like Van Wilder made a step up, right? Like a proper step up.
Yeah. Van Wilder.
I feel like he did.
From when?
The gap with the Vuelta is not significant, but I feel like in Algarve he was properly competing for GC.
Yeah, Algarve was good. To be honest, maybe it's because I expected him to do exactly this.
Yeah?
To be honest, I expected him yesterday to reduce it to 5.
Okay.
To 4. I expected a little bit more, actually. Van Gils is who I think has really gone from winning a meme Saudi edition to like being a legitimately quite good climber and rider. And there's another Belgian on Lotto Destiny I want to highlight at the end of this stage. But I mean, to your point, Benji, I don't know. Maybe Van Gils, has he been? Not Van Gils, Van Wilder. He might not have done the same prep as Remco, just come from altitude. So he might actually be performing really well for someone who is about to have a little bit of a break and build back up again. But he's been very, very good. Actually, it's Hirt that's been a little bit not doing exactly, especially yesterday, was not good. And Masnada maybe a little bit under too. But long time till the Giro. Quickstep was strong. Jumbo-Visma didn't have too many riders. And we were just thinking, when is Remco or Evenepoel going to attack? Because this is a big, wide road. I dare say even a highway by European standards. It's up to a ski resort. It's like decent road surface. Draft is important. There's not that many steep pinches at all. When is Remco going to go? And at one point, Benji, I thought Van Wilder was going to control it until the sprint because the moment seemed to have passed.
Yeah, it's like you'd expect it on like the steepest part of La Molina. I feel like it was maybe a bit later, a tiny bit later than that. We were at 4 kilometers to go, which is where we're kind of evolving into this like up and down terrain at the end of La Molina. But I did feel like something was coming, and the tempo of Van Wilder wasn't excruciating. I didn't feel like I was watching someone about to get launched, but maybe that's like a subtle surprise factor, not expecting the move then? Or would you say we're underrating the tempo of Van Wilder here?
I don't know. Maybe Van Wilder was pulling really, really strongly, and there's no need to attack when your teammate is pulling. What was clear, though, when Remco does go with, I think, over 4 kilometers remaining, and this is just before the descent, not just before, there is a K before the descent starts at least, Roglic is not immediately on the wheel. Like, it's a long bridge before he's directly on the wheel. And that was interesting to me in that he must have been under a little bit of pressure then, because if he is doing it easy, there's not going to be a 15 to 25 second lag while he's sort of motoring across to the wheel, at least from what I
Yeah.
think. He was like powering his way across to Remco. Obviously, a very strong attack from Remco. And the question was, is Remco going to do what he did yesterday? And the answer is yes. He's going to just, into rain style, pace the whole... not the whole way.
Yeah.
Not the whole way, but Remco basically goes to front, starts pacing. We all expect it. Roglic is in the wheel. He is... If you go and look at the position of Roglic, and it's clear 2020 hindsight now, he wasn't bluffing. Roglic is like hunched over, trying to get as aero as possible, like rocking a bit. Evenepoel obviously already had him on the limit. This isn't even that hard a climb, and it has been a hard stage because of Quick Step. Behind, though, Benji, credit to Adam Yates where credit is due. UAE had Soler bringing back Almeida, and this is... we should discuss this. You bring back Almeida to the group. Yates is looking back, sees Almeida there, starts pacing. Good job, Adam Yates.
I think so as well. Whether Soler was pacing because he was seeing Almeida behind, or whether it was because Soler was dropping as well, I'm honestly still in the field of like, he probably was dropping as well and was pacing himself back as well in that situation. But hey, it happened, so we got to credit them. And from that point onwards, you'd be like, they're going to start pacing, right? And Yates did pace at this point for a tiny bit. Wasn't crazy. And the gap kind of expanded a tiny bit to a good 20 seconds. Was roughly 20 seconds, I feel like, before they dove into the descent, because Molina is basically a descent before a ramp until the finish line again. And that existed, and suddenly, who do we see of the front of the second group?
Marc Soler. I defended Marc Soler yesterday on the pod and on Twitter. This is inexcusable. He's behind Almeida on GC. He's not as strong as Almeida, let's be real. Almeida should do better than him on low port. Now, I'm not saying he has to throw away his GC for Almeida yesterday either, or even today. But to attack when Yates was pacing into a chasse patate into that descent, just like he did last year, with Almeida having been brought back, is really poor. Mainly because, first of all, it has zero chance of success. So he's throwing away his own GC time by doing that stupid attack. And he's disrupted the rhythm of what Yates was doing for Almeida. So, yeah, just really, really tough seeing that sort of thing. That being said, I will say, what's Almeida doing getting dropped, Benji, when Remco goes and there's still 10 other GC contenders there?
I told you.
Like, is there something wrong with his training?
I told you, he is literally the climbing Tim de Klerk. He can't go above a certain wattage to follow people. Right? It's the only explanation.
He has to be able to. He has to be able to, physically. He has to. It must... He finishes fifth, second, third in the group behind. And Hindley and Ciccone got good punch. Finishes fifth, third in that group.
Is he scared of going in the red?
It must be a choice. Physically, in that moment, he can stay in that group. And he chooses not to.
I think he's scared of going in the red.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But every climb is not Raimoneteru. Like, when you're going into a descent, you want to be on a wheel. Like, it really, really helps. Yeah. When you're going 60 in a La Molina, you kind of want to be on the wheel. Like, I get it on Mortirola, do the power, that does make sense. But, man... And that is where I lose a little bit of the sympathy for him. And if I was his teammate, I'd be like, come on, man. You can stay with the group. Yeah.
Almeida fans, their heart rate must be like up and down and up and down and up and down. Like crazy.
Well, no, I think Almeida's really, really good. Yeah. I think Almeida's brilliant. I just think sometimes La Molina's not the climb to do the Almeida strat. Do it on low port. Low port's a good one. Yeah. We'll see that later. Anyway, Remco leads out Roglic. He does seem to be very cognizant of Roglic on his wheel. The gap is 19 down to a bit less than that, coming down to 15, maybe even 13. And then I think, is Remco going to open up too early? Roglic kind of baits him a little bit at 300, but Remco slowly opens up his sprint, not too early, and just straight drops Roglic. Roglic isn't even in the drops yet. It's like a 4 5% uphill. And Remco seemed very, very pumped to win the stage, Benji, winning comfortably a 2-second gap with the post-up costing him the jersey.
Yep, quite certainly. Now, I will say, however, we look at this stage and we look at yesterday's stage for a second. What are the differences? Why does it work today and it didn't work yesterday? And I'd say we can point at two things here, right? First of all, the stage was harder and they put more effort into the Creta climb before the final climb, and therefore maybe the effort had more of a consequence on Roglic throughout the stage. That's one factor that could play a role. But also next to that, I think he really slowed down, like you mentioned, right before the sprint, because the group behind was in vision just before they started sprinting, just before they both started launching. Did you at any point believe that Roglic was once again doing his trick where he kind of showed that he was launching and staying on the wheel? He was too much, like his elbows give it away, right? Roglic's elbows tell a story.
And also just the way he was getting back to the wheel when Remco first attacked, and then Remco had kept the pressure on, and it just goes to show, and this is why it was curious to me, and like I did have a wry smile when I saw Remco win the stage. I was like, wow, like imagine how much time you would have taken yesterday if you'd launched yesterday, because yesterday they didn't seem sure of Remco. Yeah. For some reason, he's done crazy watts on Tay-Day, and maybe they think the air is extra thin at altitude on mainland Spain versus altitude on island off the coast of Africa, Spain. I think it's all the same at the same altitude. Maybe I could be wrong with pressure or whatever, but they're like, oh, we'll see how we go at altitude yesterday. I was like, well, you fucking did 6.7 for 20 in training. Like, it's going pretty good. So, I mean, it just goes to show how good Remco's shape is right now. He is in crazy shape, and to do what he did yesterday, not lose time, to do what he did today, attacking on La Molina, which is not a selective climb. I know they made it hard before, but it is not a selective climb. It has a descent in the middle, which he paced, and then to win the sprint like that against Roglic goes to show he is in fantastic shape, and I'm really excited for what he can do on low port.
For certain. You mentioned the celebration, the celebration costing him the jersey. He's now on same time, I'm pretty sure, as Roglic on the second spot. And my question there was like, Laporte is coming. He's now in second position on same time. I don't think it will matter too much for the control of the race who's in first, but I think Laporte will decide it anyway. I think Remco Evenepoel will drop Primož Roglic on Laporte. So I don't think this will matter. But at the Giro, he probably, depending on the stage, he shouldn't do this. Because on some stages, you do want someone else in the jersey. But in this situation, it didn't really matter for control in the next stages, I think.
Nah, I think if he's 5 seconds ahead, or if Remco is 5 seconds ahead of Roglic for Laporte, you would still want to pace if you're Quick-Step, because if Roglic wins in Barcelona, which he could, and Remco doesn't take any bonus seconds, Roglic wins GC. So if he was leading, if he was behind, Quick-Step are always going to pace Laporte, at least I think. But yeah, also Roglic, I don't know, he's come back from the surgery or the shoulder or whatever was wrong with him. He's a little bit behind in the training compared to the other guys. He wasn't even supposed to be at Tirreno, which he won. I'm not sure if he's had the same prep as Evenepoel. That being said, I think I think it's going to be difficult for him on low port. The road decides and has no forgiveness, no matter whether you've had bad prep or good prep. Otherwise, in the group behind, Ciccone wins the sprint, so he's still in very, very good shape. He's the clear third best behind Evenepoel and Roglic. Healy fourth, Almeida fifth, Landa sixth, Woods, Uterbrooks, Chavez, Bardet, O'Connor, all on the same time. Soler lost another 9 seconds, so good move. And I want to point out this rider, Lennart van Eetveld. If that's how you say it.
Lennart.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah. He was on Tide in Tenerife at the moment when I was riding on Tide in December. And he was on the hotel on the opposite side of the street of me, and I never saw him, unfortunate. I would have dropped him on Tide. 1v1 me, Lennart.
I think so. Anyway, he's only 21. This is his first year at Lotto Destiny. He had 2 top 3s in the Mallorcan one-day races. And then Almaritime du Var, he was okay, like 16th in a couple of stages. Then not so good in the one-day races, like Velodrome and Ardèche. But then he was 20th yesterday, only 132 back, finished ahead of Bardet. And then today he's 12th on La Molina, only 22 seconds back. Now this guy has won a stage of the Baby Giro, second in GC there, second in Liège U23. So he might be a little bit punchier, and that was behind Gregoire, who's very, very good.
Flesh.
Same at Flesh Ardennais, which I'm going to say is the U23 version of Flesh Wallone, even though it's not, and I know it's not, but it's funny if I say it is. So he looks very good, and I look forward to seeing him at Flesh Wallone and Liège this year for Lotto Destiny.
I truly think that those races, the Hill Classics, are the ones where he'll be stepping forward for that team. Now, there's a few other riders that will try and do stuff there. I think Andreas Kohn will probably try and do stuff there. But I'm really hyped on Lennart van Eetveld, as we saw in the early weeks of this year when it comes to racing. Now, when it comes to Uiterbrooks for a second, we hyped him up a lot in the past, and now that he's actually performing, I feel like we're going over him as like, he's just in the top 10 sometimes. But
expected,
eh? Volta top 10 should be doable, eh?
Top 10? Nah, actually, it depends who goes to the Vuelta, of course. But yeah, top 10 of the Vuelta, absolutely doable. To be honest, I would send him as a domestique for Hindley at the Tour. Okay. I don't see why not. Like, I really like you rarely get an opportunity to do a Tour de France with zero pressure.
Yep.
Very rarely. Jonas in 21, not much pressure on Jonas Vingegaard. In fact, unless you're watching on the Angleroo, a lot of people might not have known who Jonas was. Now, Uiterbrooks a bigger name than that, but if you go and it's all about Giro winner Hindley, he's going as a domestique for Hindley, like Bernal went in 2018.
Yeah, but
first of all, he can stay in GC. It's good experience for the Tour. I think that makes the most sense. He's also going to be really good for Hindley in that role.
Yeah, but Vingegaard is Danish and Uiterbrooks is Belgian. Belgian media will invent a TV program called Tour de Key on Uiterbrooks.
Wow, it's going.
Yeah,
true.
I
feel like Uiterbrooks barely gets any coverage relative to his age and talent.
I think that's one, because he signed for Bora, and because Remco exists, and two, because his family probably protects him pretty well. I once tried to get him on the podcast 2 years ago, and his agent said he can't because he's studying, which was probably a valid reason, but he probably was also protecting him against media stuff back then, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah. When is Remco coming on the podcast?
Good question. I should ask it soon.
I've got so many questions for Remco.
He's probably like euphoric right now, because the last 3 days in this race, the last 2 days in this race, I received a message after the finish saying "fuck" every time he lost. So now
he seemed very happy that he won the stage. Like, yeah, really. I mean, everyone's happy. Well, actually, no. Roglic is not happy when he wins the stage. Just goes and presses the ends ride button. He doesn't even react, which is pretty funny. Anyway, this Roglic is still leading GC, but to me, the race feels kind of over.
Yep.
It's a weird feeling because it's the quote-unquote easiest finish, and Remco was able to take time. Anyway, we'll do the preview of tomorrow's stage. Low Port, by the way, which we keep mentioning just for reference, it's a hockey stick stage. It's 8.6 Ks, 8.9%. Remco has performed very, very well on stages like that, which is the Galstertoppen climb in Norway is very, very similar. So, yeah, in cool conditions, he should be okay. Remco, I think, has a heating problem, by the way.
Possibly.
He's got the jersey unzipped on fucking La Molina. You know, it's like cold. I don't know. And it's also when you look at the other riders, they don't have it undone.
It's a Giro that he's riding, so it probably won't be an issue.
True, yeah. 2,700 meter Swiss border in May is not, global climate change is a problem, but it shouldn't be too hot up there. Anyway, tomorrow's stage, 188 Ks from Yvia to Sabadell. It is a sprint stage. I really think this is the one sprint stage. We've got Groves, Coquard here. There's an intermediate sprint early. The break should take that, so I don't think Roglic and Remco will get mixed up in that. Who you got for the sprint, Benji? Someone weird like Arne Marit?
I literally was looking at Intermarché and saw Arne Marit when you asked that question.
Yeah.
I was like, gonna say Arne Marit, but now that you said it, nah, he's gonna be destroyed tomorrow. Now, when it comes to other riders, Caden
Offset a
Groves
DNF.
is kind of the name you're looking at, for this
Yeah.
race. Abrasturi crashed pretty hard as well for Trek. Everybody
True.
had crashed at Trek has crashed these days. Kenny's also out, I'm pretty sure. Offstetter probably won't make it against the big boys. Jaco's not here with a
Strong.
sprinter. Strong is probably the one that they will go for. They've got Impy, but I feel like I rate
No, they'll go
Strong
for
better
Strong.
than Impy. And I don't know, Milan Menton
Edward
sprinted.
Prades.
I'm gonna go with Milan Menton. He sprinted really well in a race this week or last week.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. I'm gonna go with Groves. He'll probably be the stage favorite.
Yeah, should be.
Other fast
Remco.
people, jeez. I'm not sure about that. Thomas. Oh, Ethan Hayter's here.
Yeah, but he didn't look great on stage one. As in his positioning
He
was good
did.
this time, but his sprint wasn't.
Oh, it was uphill. I mean,
Yeah,
where are
but
the other
he's
sprinters?
supposed to be
Where were
good
the
at
other
uphill.
sprinters? Nah. Oh, I mean, I was more encouraged by the positioning, to be honest.
True.
Yeah. Anyway, Hayter, Cockard, Groves, Menton, Arne Marit. It's a bit of a lottery. Could have like Rudiger Zelig is going to top 10. That's what we get in Catalunya. Anyway, that's it from the stage. Remco looking good, but we do have a big showdown coming on Low Port on Friday. Otherwise, Brugge-De Panne was also on today. For me, that took a little bit of a back seat. That was 213 Ks. I know. I apologize, but Remco v Roglic, I have to be watching that. We don't know how many more times we'll see that in our life. From Bruges, beautiful fairy tale city, to De Panne on the coast, on the French border in the west of Flanders. They do laps around the Moeren, which is like flat marshland area, super exposed to wind and cold. And we had a really strong start list here of sprinters: Gaviria, Groenewegen, Jakobsen, Philipsen, Bennett. It goes on and on. Ackermann, Molano. It was a really Olav Koy, Cavendish. Apart from Merlier, we had virtually every half-decent sprinter in this race, as well as good rouleur squads too, with like Van Poppel. And basically every rouleur you'll see in Flanders on E3 and Gent-Wevelgem was at this race. Just missing Van der Poel, Pog, Binney, Van Aert, like the top classics guys. But yeah, how did it open up, Benji?
Well, we had a breakaway. Jonas Ruch, Milan Fretaille, Jens Reinders, Luis Bendixen, and Matthias Lebere. The guy we mentioned a few times, Lebere. I don't know where he was good, but he was good at some point this year, and we mentioned it on the podcast. So if you go back, listen to every podcast, you'll know what I'm talking about. So good luck with that. That being said, that breakaway was not going to be the most decisive thing, although they didn't make it into a front echelon later in the race, so they survived somewhat and helped their teammates a bit. So technically, they were satellite riders accidentally. That aside, echelons was where it was going to happen because you mentioned it. The Moeren is that spectacular section that we sometimes have at the start at Gent-Wevelgem, where if there's echelons in Gent-Wevelgem, it's usually before the hills, which is where the Moeren are in that race. Here it's more towards the end of the race, like you said. Multiple laps, I think 3 laps in total of that. They go down from Veurne, which is like above the Moeren marches, and then they turn around and go upwards, and the upwards part is where the danger was this time around. The going north part towards the Panne and Veurne was a danger part, because you got to imagine you're in America, you're in the middle of a fucking desert, and there's one road in there. That's that, but the difference is there's marches around you instead of a road. And this is not a lie. The trees by the sides of these roads are oddly shaped in one direction because of the wind. So obviously there can be echelons there. There was cross tailwind in this section, above 27k an hour, so it was happening. We knew that, but I feel like there were echelons before we even got there, because splits in the peloton with 163 kilometers to go. Bennett drops, Bennett abandons. So Jordi Mees was the next one in line for that team. Then that sucks for Bennett. He crashed in Milan-San Remo though, but he said it wasn't as bad as it looked. Anyway, that came back together 3k later. Next 10 kilometers, 153k to go, split in the peloton, comes back together. And then it kind of was a rest moment, because then you're going through like the cities before we head into the marches, into the Moeren. And we see a crash from Cavendish and a mechanical for Kooi. And I think that mechanical of Kooi fucked him over at that moment in the race. And by the end of the race, you'll be like, oh, how did he get there? But let's talk about it. 113 kilometers, mechanical of Kooi, and then we see 6K later that the Moeren arrive. And Alpecin is really the team that was the one really pushing every echelon, I feel like, in this race. Quickstep was also pushing, but I feel like it was more Alpecin that was the more decisive team here. And they pushed it open, and we've got 35 riders at the front of the race, basically when coverage starts. And the breakaways being caught at this point. And who's in it? I've got a list in front of me. The most important parts are there's 4 eyes of Quickstep in there. The initial list showed Jakobsen, but he was not in the first echelon there. So, not ideal if you're Quickstep there. And shockingly, Alpecin, who was very active at creating echelons as well, also there with only 2 riders. So, not ideal for them either. So, a lot of riders behind at that point. I'm pretty sure Philipsen that was actually in the group there a bit later. But Van Poppel was there with Koch and Mullen because Bennett wasn't there anymore, but Meus neither. So Van Poppel was the guy, but then he punctured out of the group, so that wasn't good for that group. Like, there's so many riders in this group, but so many missing as well. Welsford is missing, Bauhaus is missing, Jakobsen, Groenewegen, Olaf Kooi from that mechanical, De Mar, Cavendish who crashed, Bennett who abandoned, Gaviria, Akkerman, Van Marke and Gerben Thijs, and all those sprinters. And it kind of is the thing you'd expect. They go through the Moeren, and then what's going to happen afterwards? There's a lot of teams that don't have their sprinter there and would like to have their sprinter there, so there's no real follow-up there, right? Do you feel like a team like Lotto was expected to push there? They did push a tiny bit, but Ewan kind of dropped a bit later, so that was not ideal.
I'm not sure how much they trust Ewan. Like, if you're Frison and you got Diamonds or Boulens, who I don't know particularly well, but he seems to be improving a little bit too. Like, do you know, you don't want to be that guy on TV who's pushing when your sprinter's getting dropped at the back, especially when you're a team where it's like a lot has been around Caleb Ewan. Also, maybe you are anticipating would work. I don't know. Like, Lotto seem to be doing really well from relative to last year, focusing back on sort of just being good at races across both Catalunya and here and other races. They're doing quite well at the moment.
I would also say that despite all the chaos I just threw at you when it comes to that group, the second group came back afterwards, and we went into the second Moeren, and that's where it started to become a more linear race where you can actually understand what's going on. So Alpecin once again pushing echelons together with Lotto, and that splits up the peloton at 65 kilometers to go. And there's a group where we can actually understand what's going on. We've got 4 eyes of Quickstep, Jakobsen, Ballerini, Lampard, and Van Lerbergen. So their goal is achieved, right? Jakobsen in Group 1. Groenewegen is there without a single teammate, so not super ideal, but they're leaders there. So that's the most important part. Philipsen and Ricard are there, so 2 riders for Alpecin. They maybe would have wanted more than 2 riders there, but their leader is there, and they've got a lead out there. So they're okay with it. Jonas Koch's there. Well, that's not good enough, for what was Bennett's team. Van Poppel punctured earlier, so was missing here. And then I don't know where Meus was personally. Marijn Vandenberg made it into the sprint. He's been pretty decent this year, a bit of a step up. Akkerman Molano here. And De Mar, Welton, Turns, Olaf Kooi, Consoni, Mozzato, and Frison and Beulens. And Ewan dropped at that point. But at this point, we're heading towards the final Moeren, and we've got a bit of a move in the peloton, huh? Well, what's left of it.
Lampard attacks, which is all right with Philipsen, and Philipsen doing a lot of work for himself. This is, I think, to speak for both Benji and myself, why we think he is the best sprinter in the world, because he can jump into moves like this and also sprint afterwards. He can also win a Tour de France big old sprint. He can also get over hills. He's just a really good all-around sprinter, even if maybe he can't win a Sanremo or Gaan Wevelgem the way they're currently raced. Anyway, Lampard, Philipsen, Kooi attack, Frison, Bridges. Interesting from Lampard, Benji, right? Like, he's putting a lot of pressure on himself against, 2 of the top 4 favourites before this race even started?
Yeah, it looked like he was kind of pushing in an echelon section or a not super clear echelon section, and a gap kind of was created behind Philipsen and Kooi. And Philipsen kept pushing because he's like, well, this is a good situation for me. Let's hammer it. And then Lampaard is like, oh God. And he just sits on the wheel from that point. So it's an interesting attack. Whether he did it on purpose is a questionable thing. I would say that when that moves keeps going and Lampaard keeps sitting on the back, you know that Quickstep's not happy with this situation. And after that, we've got like a mechanical of someone of Quickstep in the second group, and he like drops off the back of that group, and we see Wilfried Peters, I think, jump out of the car and like flip over, half on the ground, slip, and then give the bike to I think it might have been Lampaard before this attack actually that happened. But just I hope he's okay, Wilfried Peters, but it was pretty funny to see that happen. I hope he's okay.
Imagine he's got a broken ankle.
Well, then
I'm
getting cancelled. Anyway, Quickstep's pacing behind, so clearly not happy with the situation. And this was going towards the last 2 kilometers here. And what you'd expect in that group is an attack from Lampaard and Frison, right?
For sure from Lampaard. You can't go to the finish with Coy and Phillips. Like, are you serious? Like, who would? There aren't many riders you would go to the finish with. Even Van Aert, I'd be like, I'll probably think about counterattacking at some point.
Yeah.
And also, if you attack and the goal is for the group behind to come back and you've got Fabio on 21 seconds, if you start opening up the attacks early, is Philipsen, after he closes you, really going to start going to the front again and driving it?
Yep.
Like,
I agree.
Isn't chaos what you want earlier? And that lets Fabio come back? Where's Fabio? As they said in Moneyball. But yeah, and he's not in a group, Fabio, with, like, hey, Milano's there, but it's not Marcel Kittel in the group. I don't know. It seemed like sitting on the back's great. You are getting a little bit of an advantage. But the last thing a pure sprinter wants to do is start turning it into the last 5Ks into a brawl. So, yeah, it almost looked like he backed his sprint, Benji.
Yep, it looked like that straight up. There was one rider that didn't back his sprint, which was Frison, who attacked with 1.5K to go. But Philipsen was looking at him while he was attacking. So it was like looking to the left behind him, and he was like, okay, I'm just going to follow your wheel. Because like Frison's kind of like the Leclerc in the sense that he can't go past a certain wattage. He's also got that limit. And we see Philipsen just following that wheel and Coy following the wheel of Philipsen. And we see Lampaard in the wheel of Coy. And from that point on, it's getting too close to the finish line to really expect too many attacks. But I still expected Lampaard to attack early instead of trusting his final sprint. So I don't know. Maybe he just felt he was going to beat Philipsen and Coy on the finish line here. I don't know. Get diamond in the legs, maybe. But
there's no way. There's no way. Like,
did we not at some
possible.
point see? Was this the European Championships where Ackermann, Lampaard, and Viviani were against each other, and Lampaard trusted its sprint against one of them?
I think was that Lampaard with. I'm trying to remember.
2020 probably, because we didn't do podcasts in 2019, so we couldn't have actually done a podcast about it.
I think it was, I did a video on it. It was the 2019 European Championships.
Oh.
And yes, you're correct. And basically Lampaard rode with Viviani the whole way and then got beaten in the sprint. Now, the excuse was they were trade teammates at the time.
Yeah,
Viviani was on Quickstep. So that was the excuse.
These are not trade teammates, Lampaard and Philipsen. Maybe they're friends of the bike. We don't know. But yeah, on paper, Philipsen and Coy should be beating Lampaard here. And we see Lampaard open it early on the left side. He like goes by the barrier and moves on the left side. But yeah, there was a pretty quick response on the other side of the road, right?
Philipsen comes out of the wheel, does the business. Coy comes out of his wheel a little bit to the right, that he's not moving up quick enough at all. You can see the finish coming quickly. He comes second behind Philipsen. Lampaard third, Frison fourth. Jakobsen wins the bunch sprint behind for fifth. Decent gaps though, like Ballerini and Van Leeuwenhoek were just ahead of Groenewegen. De Maar further back. Selective race, like 24th is on 4 minutes 53. Now, they probably stopped trying, and people in Flanders keep trying for a top 20, but big gaps for a flat race. Goes to show how hard it was today. So, impressive from Philipsen. He has won 3 races this year, all at World Tour level. in 11 race days. And let me have a look. Is this his biggest? I would say this is his biggest one-day win. He's obviously won 2 stages of the Tour de France, but this is above Eschborn and Frankfurt for me, especially given the quality of competition. Pardon?
Gent-Wevelgem is coming.
Is that this weekend?
That should be this week, I'm pretty sure. But I think Sunday or something.
It is. It's on Sunday.
And
he's on the start list.
And he doesn't have Merlier in his team this time, so he won't be fucked over by his team this time around.
And Merlier's, I mean, that's a big one for Quickstep. They have Merlier there with Lampard, Asgreen, Ballerini, Pedersen, Steiner, Van Leerberger. It's virtually their A Classics team. Van Aert's also doing Gent-Wevelgem. But anyway, we'll be recapping that race on Sunday. But nothing really to report here apart from the Lampard discussion. I expected Philipsen to beat Coy. Good on Frizzon for trying. That's a very nice result for him coming fourth in a sort of World Tour level one-day race like this. Definitely a lot of question marks over Soudal Quickstep going into this classic season. But when Remco's doing the business in Spain, that takes a little bit of the sting off, I think.
I will say, this race should decide how many UCI points it gives, depending on whether there was wind in the Moeren or not. Because last 100%. Year, it was a bloody sprint.
And coverage.
What do you mean?
Well, like same with Gent-Wevelgem. If you know the day before the weather is going to be bad, I want wall-to-wall coverage.
Yeah.
If it's sunny, 12 degrees, no wind, you can start it at 15 Ks to go.
Exactly. But I will say when it comes to this race, I would even go as far as saying if it has echelons, give it monument points. If it doesn't have echelons, give it the same points as, I don't know, Coppa Bernocchi or a random stage in the Saskatoon.
Giro del Veneto. Saskatoon. That's where Jayco find all their riders, Benji. Anyway, nice win for Philipsen. Albsen looking a lot better than they did a month ago. Funny how that works when Philipsen and Evenepoel start racing again. Anyway, the other news was in Settimana Coppa Nazionale Bartoli, if that's how you say it. Sean Quinn won Viva la America. So he's a nice young American rider on the EF Education Easy Post. This is his first professional win. He did well in a Portuguese race before. He was third in the Dauphiné stage last year. I can't really figure out what type of rider he is because he's kind of slender. He has a sprint, but he hasn't done that well on punchy finishes, even though he's a quick sprinter. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But he won this stage, which is great to see. Good teamwork with James Shaw, who I think did the lead out. They beat Mario Schmidt and Walter Calzoni on
that sounds like food.
Q3 6.5. It does, Benji. It sounds like a pizza.
Wait, what? Oh, is that the folded pizzas?
A calzone is a folded pizza, yeah.
So folded pizza nearly won Coppa Bartoli. Is this racist?
No, but I'm going to say yes just to do you a concern.
Fuck.
Nah, it's not. His name's literally folded pizza. Is it the plural of it? Because it was an E, not an I in on restaurants in. Anyway, we're deep into the weeds here. Anyway, nice result for him. And to be honest, he came 11th in Classical HN. He looks like a half-decent rider. He's only 21. I reckon he's pretty good. Calzoni. I reckon he'll get picked up by Trek or somebody in 2025. He is good enough to be on a World Tour team, even though Q3 6.5 have done a little bit better this year than I expected them to do. But that's a race to watch. Pardon?
A tasty performance.
That's very, very good. But that's a race we'll just to watch from like a scouting and improvement and young rider perspective. Like it's usually guys 25 or under who get sent there by the dev teams, or they ride. Guys on the dev team on Jumbo, for example, will ride for the big team in this race. They're allowed to go up and down. But there's also Remy Cavagna there. He sort of beat up the kids yesterday going solo.
Beat up the kids?
Well, that's what it is, right? I mean, to me, this is like glorified U23 race.
Child torture.
He went on his one of patented attacks and beat up the kids, and he won 32 seconds. But he lost that time today. So I thought GC Cavagna was on. He lost. He lost 3:22. And there's a TT in this race. I thought GC was done. So good for the interest. But
the kids are beating him up today.
He got beaten up by the kids today. Schmidt came second. But yeah, Glog's here. Lipovitz is here. Lots of young guys. So worth watching. Yeah, actually, no, sorry, it's impossible to watch. We'll just tell you what happened. Anyway, seriously, it's like impossible to watch this race unless you live in Italy and can watch Rye at 7 p.m. That's all from us today. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with the sprint stage of Catalunya tomorrow. And then I think that's all the World Tour racing in terms of classics until E3 on Friday. Lots of stuff happening. Until then, ciao.